And maybe you were going to be going into it anyways, but initially, one of my first questions was your vetting process, because I can understand vetting prospective tenants for when it's going to be something long term. So you might want to take a deeper dive, deeper approach. And I don't know how thorough you would be if it's on a short term. What was your vetting process like, because you knew they were only going to be staying for a shorter amount of time?
I was completely relying on Airbnb. That was my lifeblood. My reviews were everything. It was taking a little bit of a leap of faith every time because, you're booking somebody for a month. And not only, are they going to be your guest, but they're going to be my roommate for that time. And it was, at times fulfilling and rewarding, and at times super challenging. Some of the people are more reserved. Some of the people are more introverted. And so sometimes I had guests who came in who maybe like a social space or living with seven other people wasn't really suitable to them. So it would be challenging integrating them. But the vetting process was essentially just looking at their Airbnb profile, asking them a few questions. Hopefully they had some reviews, but I had the support of Airbnb and I felt like I could trust them to resolve issues when they did come up. I'd say I had issues in other areas, but reoccurring, cleanliness, things like that. One telltale sign you asked about that would be somebody coming in asking a lot of questions and specifically asking for discounts. It's not uncommon generally. That would be a little bit of a telltale sign of a higher maintenance person who was looking for something very specific. Having a co-living space, people need to be flexible. Get along, share a bathroom, share a kitchen. Like sometimes I would be a little suspect of people upfront asking for big concessions. There were incidents along the way for sure. I hosted over 300 people. When they know I'm there, they take a little pride in the cleanliness. They take a little pride in how the house is run because they know that they're going to be there for a little while. They have to comply and fit in, and there's a different dynamic with the midterm rentals, especially with a shared space like that.
Just out of curiosity, was there ever an instance where, they seemed like perfect on paper, they were perfect on their Airbnb profile, and then after they moved in, all of a sudden it's like night and day. They just flipped on you and just, became a horrible tenant all of a sudden?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there were people who definitely were a lot different than I expected. Usually people weren't exactly who I thought they were. For the most part, people were able to fit in. I didn't have too many serious problems, but yeah, you never quite know. You're looking at their photos on Airbnb and you're looking at their profile and you talk to them, ask a few questions, and then they come, lock in to live with you for a month. Sometimes that turns into 3 and 6 months. I didn't know about Furnished Finder back then. I don't think Furnished Finder it may not have been around back then. And that, that's, if I was doing it again, I would absolutely be on Furnished Finder. Facebook Marketplace wasn't around either, which is a little more like the Wild West, like Craigslist. But I did advertise on Craigslist a little bit. It was seasonal. People go home in the holidays. They don't want to rent through the end of December into the beginning of January. So December, January, February, specifically January, February, uh, during Christmas. So December, January, February, it was the low season. So I would lose money on those months. And so I would make up for it in the summer, but I'd be looking for other ways to fit people in through Craigslist, and through word of mouth. And so sometimes I would, kind of push the boundaries of my own rules sometimes just to fit somebody in and take a chance. And sometimes it worked out. Sometimes it didn't work out really well. So, it was tough. I knew that I was relying completely on Airbnb and I didn't really feel super comfortable with that.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, because it's a risk, especially for somebody. Because I know that was more towards the beginning of your career in real estate. So, I mean, that's just a risk that you were willing to take. You knew what the risks entailed from your buddy that, that had also been doing it, and you were kind of seeing what he was doing. But that's also just another cool thing that you did that maybe not a lot of the newbie investors might hear about, is you did house hacking essentially, but you were doing it with short-term tenants. And so that was just a good way for you to, increase your cash flow and make it easier for you to make your payments, your rent slash slash mortgage payments. And that's awesome. I think that, what you shine some light on is valuable because a lot of people don't know what they're going to get into. So I think those are some pretty good examples.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was a combination of a few different things that are kind of become buzzwords, house hacking, midterm rentals, and rental arbitrage altogether, before anyone, called those things. I mean, bigger pockets beginning to go down the bigger pockets rabbit hole, learning about house hacking and I wanted to get into real estate investing, but living in San Francisco, it was about the highest barrier to entry you could find. And then I was forced into midterm rentals because of the regulations. A good way to do something in real estate that's creative is rental arbitrage. There's a lot of people scaling that. It's very scalable. But it comes with its own risks, and it was a great learning experience, and it definitely started my real estate journey off, and I learned a ton, and I'm grateful for that experience.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I also wanted to highlight that I wanted to give you kudos on as well too, which is a strong attribute to have as far as especially in real estate investing, but business in general as well too, is that you saw this situation. You were like, okay, I'm doing short-term rentals here, and then the issue with the city came up and dealing with the permitting issue and everything like that, and then you had to transition from short term to midterm, and even just issues with having to make those payments every month and everything. That's I think a crucial part because that's an uncontrollable factor a lot of the times. Like there's going to be different federal and state regulations and even local regulations that are going to change things up, and you hear about these kind of changes all the time, but you were willing to adapt and you were willing to be flexible and do whatever you had to do to say, okay, here's this situation. How do I turn it into a situation where it can still work for me and I can still proceed and basically be able to do something with it? So yeah, I got to give you hats off to that because you had to go from one strategy to another and then deal with those changes and everything too. So yeah, man, mad props to you on that because I know that must have been a scary time. So yeah.
Thank you. It's a little crazy thinking about it. I had a lot of conviction. There were people who told me not to do it. And it was risky. I had no choice. I had to make it work. And so there was a lot to that helped me grow and helped me learn. And I had to just get through. But thankfully it worked out, and I appreciate it. So you learn by doing, man, and that's the name of the game. And so you make mistakes, and that's where you learn, and that's how you kind of correct course. I think it's important to make those mistakes. You try this, try that, and it helps you figure out what you want to do.